Microphone on. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our session on governance policies and incentives. We're going to have 10 speakers in this session, 5 minutes each, and hold your questions to the end. We should have about 10 minutes for questions at the end of the session. And I see my time started, so let me go ahead and get into my talk. I'm Mike Wasserman, Assistant Professor of Anthropology and Human Biology at Indiana University, and today I'm going to be discussing our project on assessing the effects of conservation incentives on primates across forest fragments in Costa Rica. Now, this is a collaborative project with faculty, students, and staff at Indiana University, St. Edward's University, and the Organization for Tropical Studies. And so all my co-authors have contributed in many ways to this work, and so I'm basically just presenting a number of different people's research in these 5 minutes. So many of you have likely seen this headline over the past couple days on a study in Uganda that conducted an experimental test of payment for ecosystem services and how effective they were at protecting forests in 60 different villages in western Uganda. And basically what they found is villages that were paid for these ecosystem services had a reduction in forest loss from 9.1% forest loss to 4.2% loss. And so although showing a positive effect, there was still forest loss in both treatments. And so what we're looking at in our studies, we're interested in how payment for ecosystem services and other conservation incentives are affecting conservation of primates in Costa Rica, as well as their plant foods across a fragmented landscape. And so there's over 500 species of primates, and the majority of them are in danger of extinction. This is particularly problematic for forest ecosystems since they're important seed dispersers. And so we're looking at 3 species in Costa Rica: the howler monkey, spider monkey, and capuchin, as well as fig tree species, since these are an important plant food for primates across the tropics. Now, this is a student-led project. It's a 3-year project where we send 5 students to the field for 10 weeks each year. And these students are coming from St. Ed's and Indiana University and working with OTS faculty and staff in Costa Rica to look at how conservation incentives are affecting primates in the region. And we're using an interdisciplinary approach of focusing on environmental policy, landscape ecology, primatology, and endocrinology. So the 5 students just returned from the first year in March, and they were looking at 3 objectives: who participates in these programs, how do they affect forest condition, and how do they affect primates. As I said, this work is being done in Costa Rica at 2 field stations, La Selva and Las Cruces, that are run by OTS, shown here on the map. And we're studying in fragments at the research station and nearby national parks. And Costa Rica is a great study site since it's a biodiversity hotspot. It's suffered a forest decline over a number of decades until the 90s, when it's rebounded in forest coverage with increases in forest every year since then. And so how has Costa Rica responded to deforestation since the 90s? Well, they set aside a number of national parks. They initiated one of the first payment for ecosystem service projects in 1997, and they promoted ecotourism, restoration projects, and ecological corridors throughout the country. And so regarding our questions, Sarah Matichek and Teresa Johnson conducted 149 surveys looking at participation in PES programs and found that the majority of people didn't have enough land to actually qualify for this program. And those that did have enough land, over 1 hectare, only 20% were participating. Further, large landowners were the most likely to participate in this program, more so than small or medium-sized landowners. So then how does this affect forest condition? Eric Johnson and Abigail Croft conducted a number of total tree counts and DBH measurements of trees across plots, measuring over 4,000 trees. They looked at canopy coverage and canopy height. They set up passive air samplers to measure air quality, and they documented microclimate variation. And basically what they found is that the fragments had the lowest canopy cover and height around Las Cruces, while the Selva fragments had lower height compared to the research station or national park. And there was no difference in canopy coverage between those fragments that participated in PES and those that did not participate. Further, Eric was focused on figs and found that fig tree species were found across all sites and areas, showing them to be a good restoration target. And then in terms of the primate data, Tessa Stenicky conducted line transects across 20 different sites and calculated group encounter rates for the howler, spider, and capuchin monkeys. Here you can see where the groups were encountered across the 2 locations. And here how the conservation incentives influence primate abundance and diversity. And basically, although there was a positive effect of incentives noted, only research stations and national parks protected the entire primate community. And so with that, I'm out of time. Let me fast forward and just say, over the next 2 years, we'll be looking at primate health using a number of different indices. We'll be investigating human-primate interactions in this landscape of forest fragments, and we'll be exploring seed dispersal and the role of primates in restoring forests across this region. I'd like to thank everyone involved. Again, this was research done by 5 students over the past year, and I'd like to thank them for their hard work. Thank you. And I'll warn the other speakers, 5 minutes goes really fast, so apologies if I spoke really quickly.